This is absolutely insane as a major Rick Tocchet report reveals shocking details amidst the John Tortorella firing, leading to much media speculation, and a former Canucks executive alludes to an off-season return of a fan favorite. We're going to be breaking down all that in this episode of Canucks Digest, so first make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Canucks updates as we head to the end of this road trip with our second last game being against Columbus tomorrow night. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is insane Tocchet report. So we all know John Tortorella was fired as the Philadelphia Flyers head coach on Thursday, and media speculation quickly linked the Vancouver Canucks head coach Rick Tocchet to his former team. Tocchet is in the final year of his current contract in Vancouver, with the team owing a club option for next season. The 60-year-old won the Jack Adams Award last season after the Canucks finished atop the Pacific Division with a 50-23-9 record. I know it's been a very different story this season, and yeah, Twitter was all over the place with reactions after Tortorella was fired. You hear all of them. You hear FanDuel reporters saying, "Good morning, Rick Tocchet." You have Pittsburgh reporters saying, "I have zero doubt that Tocchet is atop the Flyers' wish list. Would be in the best interest of the Penguins if GMGR were to keep him in Vancouver a little bit longer. And it could Philly pull Rick Tocchet out of Vancouver." That's what Andy Strickland was also saying. So we have ESPN writers, Pittsburgh writers, and FanDuel writers all coming out with major reactions to these things. And Pierre LeBrun, though, of TSN, we all know him. He relayed Wednesday that the Canucks general manager Patrik Allvin stated his desire to sign the head coach long-term, but Tocchet has put off contract talks until after the season. Makes sense to wait until after the season for something like this, especially when you're fighting for a playoff spot. You don't want that to be the subject of all the talks heading into a final playoff push. And if you make it to the playoffs, you don't want that to overshadow your entire postseason, just like other player contract extensions have been the much topic of debate, or topic of discussion, I should say, in Vancouver. With all the Brock Boeser stuff, with all the Pius Suter stuff, you don't want to add the Rick Tocchet extension on top of that, especially when the Canucks are in the position that they're in and still desperately fighting to keep those playoff hopes alive. And speaking of what Patrik Allvin was saying about extending Rick Tocchet long term, in an interview he did with The Athletic, he was saying here, if you want to pause it and take a read instead of hearing me read it, you can absolutely do that, but I'll read it here for you as well, saying, "What I really like about Tocchet is his ability to communicate with people. The hours he puts in there to having individual meetings with players, I think that's paying off. And part of it, I felt, is what I felt we needed, that accountability and credibility with guys who have done it, like Tocchet, Footer, Adam Foote, and Sergei Gonchar. They've all won cups. I'm proud of how Rick has handled the season here. I do believe that he is a good coach, and I see him in Vancouver long term. It's a two-way street there. Up to this point, it hasn't been an urgency for us to do anything with a club option." So obviously this is something where, hey, Patrik Allvin, he recognizes the value that Rick Tocchet brings to the Vancouver Canucks. We've seen it. He won the Jack Adams Award last year. Yeah, it's been a rocky road this season, and yes, social media has been very divided on how they perceive Rick Tocchet this season. I've seen a lot of tweets both loving him and hating him this season. I've been on the fence about him this season myself. In the end, I still think you do keep him in Vancouver. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's someone that, hey, with this Vancouver system, with these guys, players love him. They love playing for him, and he fits in with this organization well with having a player staff mentality where we have Sergei Gonchar, Adam Foote, and also the Sedins as well in the building too. So we have all these guys in there that have NHL experience. A lot of them have won cups as well. So having that mentality in the locker room, in the organization, is something that players love and gravitate towards, rather than somebody who hasn't really played the game, has been more of a career coach, or just hasn't really translated and just bounced around to a bunch of different organizations. So with this, I think it's very convincing. I think it would be very shocking to see Rick Tocchet go anywhere other than Vancouver. And yes, there's all this talk getting very loud right now around the Philly stuff, just because Tortorella was just fired. And yes, Tocchet spent 11 seasons with the Flyers over 2 stints during his player career. He won a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh Penguins in '92 after an in-season trade with the Flyers, and found his way back to the organization during the 1999-2000 season. Kind of sounds a bit like JT Miller. I'm kind of being a little bit biased there with the recency stuff, just because he went to New York, went to Vancouver, went back to New York. So yeah, there's a bit of back and forth there. And yes, with all of this happening, yes, Tortorella gets fired. Obviously, Philly is a big destination for players, for coaches to potentially want to go. I know it's in a big rebuilding stage right now, so it would be a disaster zone for any coach going there, even if you are a defending Jack Adams champion. Obviously, it won't be the case this year, so by the time that rolls around, he won't be the defending champ, but he still has a Jack Adams trophy and a Stanley Cup to his resume. So having that, if you're Vancouver, you don't want to lose a guy like that. Despite all the things that have happened this season, you can't blame it solely on the players. You can't blame it solely on coaching. You can't blame it solely on injuries. It's been an amalgamation of everything. So everything's kind of added up this season. And yeah, maybe we made a deal with the devil last season and it kind of caught up with us this season with the inconsistencies, with the injuries, with the drama and everything in between. So yes, it makes sense for everyone to just want to hop on the bandwagon and say, hey, Rick Tocchet to Philly, this absolutely makes sense. It would not make sense for Vancouver, though. I know everyone's been online talking about everything they've been saying, but at the end of the day, look at what Tocchet's been doing for Vancouver. Look at how players talk about him. He has the respect of that locker room and this organization very much. And the main reason why I think we all need to calm down a little bit on this is something that Rick Dhaliwal was saying on Donnie and Dolly. Now, this is an even longer quote, so if you guys want to pause it and take a read, go ahead. But Tocchet has not decided he wants to leave Vancouver. That's the big thing. There's been no decision made, no truth to the rumors that he's leaving as of today, Thursday. Tocchet has a long-standing representative in Steve Mountain. There is no way that if the Canucks call Mountain, he won't pick up and negotiate. Mountain will be ready anytime if the Canucks were to call about Tocchet and extending. Canucks have the clause in Tocchet's contract to bring him back, but it's hard to believe Tocchet would return on a one-year deal. If a deal is struck, it will be with term. They did that with Bruce Boudreau, and it was a disaster. There was a relationship with Allvin and Rutherford that Tocchet respects. They have been good to him. But if he becomes available, there's going to be a lot of interest. There could be openings in Boston, Rangers, Chicago, Pittsburgh, Anaheim. Who knows? I know everybody's going for the jugular today and that Tocchet's gone. He's going to Philly, and I just want to say that that's not 100% accurate. As of today, Tocchet's staying in Vancouver and can be sorted out under the right circumstances. So I think this is the big one where, hey, Rick Dhaliwal is being the voice of reason here. Everyone's kind of just getting their swords out, getting all up in arms, saying Tocchet's gone, it's a done deal, he's going to Philly, yada, yada, yada. It's not the case. We still have a playoff push to finish. We still have a regular season to finish. And if we make it to the postseason, we have a postseason to finish as well. And all of that would go a long way towards Rick Tocchet getting that extension and staying in Vancouver. And as well with this Tortorella firing, also helping his leverage point in trying to get whether more money, more term, or both. Depends on which way he wants to look at it. I don't think they'll bring him back on a one-year deal. If anything, they're going to bring him for a long time. They're definitely going to be a bit weary of the Bruce Boudreau disaster, but that was Jim Benning. This is new management. Hopefully, turns out for the better. But what do you guys think about all this down in the comments? Do you think Tocchet to Philly is going to happen? Do you think he's staying in Vancouver? Let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments. But that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is the return of the Bo. So former assistant GM Lawrence Gilman was on Sakaris and Price today, and he said, well, in theory, he makes great sense for the Canucks. I mean, if you slot him in behind Elias Pettersson as your number 2 centerman and sort of linchpin, Swiss Army knife center, it'd be great. You know, I don't know if the Islanders are going to look to move him, but he would be if you're looking for a complement to Elias Pettersson. Bo Horvat probably fits like a glove. Now, yes, we don't know if the Islanders have any interest in trading Bo Horvat, and this would be a very far cry, especially considering he's currently their assistant captain, and he was our former captain, so they're not going to want to just happily trade him back to us, and it would be the opposite of the JT Miller thing almost, where we'd be getting back somebody who was a heavy fan favorite with not a lot of drama. And not to forget, the main reason why Bo Horvat is not with Vancouver anymore is JT Miller. Him and JT Miller, they didn't get along. JT Miller wanted him gone. Management chose to side with JT Miller, and they shipped Bo Horvat out. Well, now look at things. JT Miller, he went from Bo Horvat on to Elias Pettersson to pick on, and then that caused the drama that it did. And then management said, hey, you were the problem the first time, and we sided with you. Now you're the problem the second time. Bye-bye. We're sending you out of here. So now you don't have JT Miller there, but you still have Elias Pettersson there. And Elias Pettersson and Bo Horvat, they had a pretty good relationship. Brock Boeser and Bo Horvat, pretty good relationship. Quinn Hughes and Bo Horvat. It does make a lot of sense, but the big question is if the Islanders are going to be willing to part with somebody that they do view as valuable, especially if they're going to be giving him back to the team that sent him there. So that's a little bit weary on that end, but I still like the idea of bringing Bo Horvat back, especially if the Canucks cannot get a deal done with Pius Suter. But with Pius Suter this season overall, and especially this past month, you pay that man. Pay him, pay Brock Boeser, and maybe you don't have to worry about Bo Horvat. But Pius Suter is proving himself to be a very solid number one center in the past few games for Vancouver, with Elias Pettersson being out, solidifying why he will be a perfect number 2 center next season, as he has been all season. But I think the big thing here is Vancouver, pay the man. Just give him the money he wants. You know that you're not going to get too much better out there. Yeah, free agency is coming up. There might be some appealing names with veterans like John Tavares and some other ones. However, John Tavares is very old at this point compared to Pius Suter. So you have a bit more longevity in there. You can sign a bit of a bigger contract. You can ensure a bit more sturdy of a future with a younger age, not a lot of injury risk as much, and with not wanting to have to put him on a short-term deal that's going to just break the bank per year. So that's the big thing here, is if Vancouver can stretch out Pius Suter's contract where it spreads it out over a long term rather than just compressing it into short term, that would be the great thing for Vancouver to look at. And I think that's the thing with Brock Boeser too. That's part of why Boeser didn't sign by the deadline too, is because they were wanting to get him. He wants to be there a bit longer. They seem like they have the money right, but the length and the term of it is what they're confused on. But what do you guys think of the Bo Horvat speculation? Do you think bringing him back to Vancouver would be a great move? I think it would be a fun move. I would love to see it. The only thing is, I don't know if it's very much likely at this point in time, but a lot of the crazy things have happened in the NHL with free agency, with trades, and everything in between. But let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments. Here, let us know your thoughts, and especially heading into these final 2 games of the road trip against Columbus and Winnipeg. How do you think it's looking for us heading into this as we try and keep our playoff hopes alive? We've had a big two-game win streak here. Beat the Islanders, beat the Devils. Let's go and get another thriller, and hopefully we can go into overtime. I know you guys don't want to hear me say that, but if we can go into overtime, steal 2 points, that's even better. But let us know what you guys have to say down in the comments. That's going to do it for this episode of Canucks Digest, and I've been your host, Griffen. Take care.